you, and great to be doing this work with you. We've had a lot of fun doing this challenge called Habits That Hold, and we're going to talk about that we're going to talk about that actually a lot tonight. Um, as we kick off our time together, we're here tonight because we're talking about values-based rhythms, and so we're calling this Habits That Hold. Before we jump into it, I just want to first invite anyone who's joining us live. We would love it if you would just in our chat, just drop us a quick line, a quick comment that says hello, where you're joining us from. That would be really fun for us, and I think others who are joining us live to catch that. So, as I mentioned, habits that hold, right? So, this is not about looking impressive. This is not about something grandiose. This is not something that's powered by guilt and shame or even motivation, as we're going to talk about that later. But it's this idea, we're calling this the idea that habits that hold. It's these rhythms that actually stick, right? When real life happens. And so it's really about less pressure, less stress, and about more alignment, right? So maybe Dr. Mike, just maybe mention about that. I know we're gonna share some intros and we're gonna get into our content tonight, but if you're just willing to share just a little bit about, I'd be curious, maybe how did we get to this focus, this challenge? You and I had a conversation which led to say, hey, we should do this. We should make this our kickoff 2026 challenge.
Yeah. To just echo what Trevor's already said, thank you guys for being with us tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is something that grew organically out of a conversation that Trevor and I had at the office. We were actually at the LiveWell offices talking about, man, what do we do for people that are in our LiveWell coaching community in particular, in our LiveWell behavioral health offices? Like, how do we help them start to create New Year's resolutions that will actually stick around? Because it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. People start resolutions with the expectation that, who knows whether this is going to work. I don't know whether I'm going to be doing this in February or March, but I'm going to make a cool list on January 30th or December 30th and see what happens. And the problem is that most of us never follow through. You have whole business models built around this, right? Like gyms have to just get through the first 2 weeks of January. Once they get through the first 2 weeks of January, everything thins out and people can go to the gym again and enjoy it. But for the first 2 weeks, they're telling everybody, hey, it's going to be crowded because people are going to try. But ultimately, we struggle to follow through with the very things that are our goals that we commit to. And I think on some level, most resolutions don't fail because people are lazy. I mean, that's kind of what we think. That's what we tell ourselves. That's the shame that we carry. Well, I just suck, and I just can't follow through with anything, and here I am again. And
Right.
they don't fail because people don't care enough. They fail because they're built on ultimately a psychological model that assumes a calm, motivated, well-regulated human being that's just kind of got all their stuff together. And that's not where a lot of us live day by day, minute by minute, especially under stress. So as stress starts to mount, we a lot of times will just put ourselves in a position where we let go of the very things that are nearest and dearest to our heart. So this whole idea of habits that hold grew out of Trevor and I's heart for you, that we could give you maybe just a little more understanding and insight as to why we tend to let go of our goals, and then ultimately answer the question, what do we do about it? How do we create these habits that ultimately are going to hold?
Yeah, that's good. So maybe let's just start. We're just start with some introductions. Introduce myself, Mike, if you'd introduce you, and then we're going to get into it. We're going to talk specifically about these habits that hold and the foundations behind it. So, if you've never joined us before, you're joining us for the very first time. My name's Trevor Hislop. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I spend a lot of my time helping and supporting couples, families, and do a lot of relational work. And I think I just want to share this in the midst of particularly my relational work. I see this struggle and tension around habit formation. Mike, I'm sure you see this too. But when I'm working, let's take couples as an example, right? They have these really heartfelt, warm intentions, right? Like we're gonna connect, we're gonna have these deep, meaningful conversations, or they have these grandiose ideas of, we're gonna go on this amazing cruise or this big vacation, or I'm gonna buy you the next whatever car or diamond ring, and I'm show all of my affection for you, and right in these big, glorious ways. And as wonderful as they are, like these are examples of they're just unsustainable, right?
Yeah.
They go from mountaintop to mountaintop to valley, right? And it's, I give it everything I got, and then I'm tapped out, and then I struggle and struggle, and then we end up in Mike's office or Trevor's office, and then we, and then we're at it again, and we're people are couples who are just driven by, sheer grit or the wave of motivations, rather than, and I think this is where I see so much of what we're going to talk about in the relational work, the idea of habit formation in the small, consistent, everyday ways. In fact, a couple times a year, I teach a marriage course or do a workshop called Deeper by Design, and that really is the foundation of all of that. This part of being able to say relationships are built in the small, consistent, repeatable moments, right?
Yeah.
And so whether that is habit formation, like, I want to get to the gym, or I want to change my eating, or I want to gain weight or lose weight, or I want to, or I just want to connect with people in more meaningful ways. Again, as an MFT, man, this so connects, not just in my own life, in the work that I'm doing, but the way that I get to care for and support others. And Mike, I know it's so meaningful in the work that you do as well.
Yeah, Trevor, I just think it's the human condition, right? So you
Yeah.
see it in a lot of the work that you do with couples. I see it in the work that I do with people that are stressed out, overwhelmed, burned out professionals, CEOs that just don't want to go to work anymore.
Right.
Just people that are depressed and traumatized. It doesn't matter what our story is. The reality is most of us struggle to follow through. And I think in some ways, Trevor, it's connected to what you just talked about. We tend to think so big and grandiose. And I'm like that. I'm the first person that sets goals that are way out of sight. Like it'd be awesome to I think we should travel the world this year, Crystal. Let's just not go on a couple vacations. Like let's go to Europe and Japan and I mean, let's how about an African safari? Like I just look for the
Right.
awesomeness. But when
Right.
we think about goals, one of the first things we've got to consider is how do we set and create goals that don't put us under pressure, that are more realistic, that are
Mm.
achievable, small, measurable goals. Because when you act like me in this situation, you end up creating a shame cycle, right? Where you set these massive, lofty goals, and then when you naturally have a human moment and you don't follow
Mm.
through with the very thing that will help you just be a peak performer, those goals ultimately make us psychologically fragile because we
Yeah.
start to beat ourselves up and our brain doesn't just say, hey, make an adjustment and move on. Our brain says you failed, and that failure is interpreted as shame, not as just a natural part of the process. So
Mm.
part of what we've got to do as we even start this conversation tonight is recognize that shame doesn't motivate change. Shame is actually going to activate the threat system in your brain. So the minute you start to beat yourself up because you suck, and a lot of you watching, you know what that means. You live that. The minute you start to beat yourself up because you're just never going to be enough, your brain goes into fight or flight, it goes into freeze mode, or it just sort of disengages. And once shame is driving your system, the goal is no longer growth. The goal is just to feel better. I can't stand feeling like this. This feels awful. And so the resolution, the goal, the New Year's sort of idea shifts quietly from man, I want to be this healthy version of myself. This is why I'm doing this. And it goes to, I want to stop feeling bad. I
Mm,
can't stand this. And that's where the cycle begins.
yeah, that's good. Um, we which Mike, you and I talked about this. We thought, yes, this is like perfect content for the new year, and then we recognized like this is great content for any time of the year, right? So
Yeah.
we just happen to be going live and rolling out this challenge and this live stream um, in January. But the idea is this is not a January thing, right? You said this is a human thing, right? This is something that we do all throughout the year, right? And actually just all throughout our lives. And so here's what I would love to do: just make this kind of relevant and kind of connect for us. And if you're joining us live, would love for you to be able to maybe just drop in the comments. We'd love to hear maybe what's one habit that you're trying to build right now. Okay, so let us know, let everybody else know again, one habit you're trying to build right now. So when we actually planned this live stream and to go live, so we're 2 weeks into January. Mike, you talked about the companies that actually anticipate and build their whole business models around failed New Year's resolutions, and we're coming just into that, right? We're 14 days, yeah, 14 days into the year, and this is about the time, right? We start to see those people at the gym start to wane, people in their nutrition plans start to fall off, people in their Bible, read the Bible in the year plans to start to struggle, like all of it. And so, again, there's purpose and there's tension in it. So, again, we'd love just let us know, and I'm sure Mike and I will share some of our own, but the habit that you've just made a commitment that you're trying to build right now. So, Mike, it may be helpful for you to be able to just talk about the core framework. I mean, there's some psychology to this, isn't there?
Yeah. So let's kind of get into it, Trevor. This is the meat of where we want to start with people because I'm a real big proponent of a model of therapy that we call in the biz acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm sure that some of you have heard of it, it's gaining popularity. And in acceptance and commitment therapy, which we call ACT, we make a crucial distinction that really changes a lot about how we go after goals in our life. Because ACT encourages people to, in many ways, surrender the idea of starting with a goal and to
Mhm.
start from the foundation of what is my value system? What is most important to me? Who am I at the end of the day? What makes me acceptable and worthwhile and significant and valuable and lovable? And as we begin to sort of understand our value system, I'm a person of integrity. I'm a person of character. I'm a person who cares about their health. I'm a person that puts people over projects. I'm the kind of person that's present with others. Just however you define your value system, that becomes the core of all of this. And so as we process this together, we put ourselves in a position where we understand that our core is ultimately going to drive our goals. So goals
Hmm.
are the destination, right? That's where you end up. Your values are the direction. A destination is something you
Hmm.
arrive at. Oh, I ran a marathon.
Hmm.
That's awesome. A value is something that you live in. I want to be healthy, and I like that marathon
Mhm.
little idea a lot because it's so practical. A lot of people will do that, especially this time of year. But some people it's like, oh, beach body. I'm gonna get my beach body. How am I gonna do it? Well, I'm gonna run the, 20, Trevor, what is it? 26.5, twenty six
Point
point
two.
three,
Point two.
twenty
Twenty
six
six
point
point
two.
two. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the guy that's literally never done that. So Trevor would know that. He's done this so many times.
Few times. Yeah.
Um, so we're like, I'm gonna do that. But that goal is not what's important.
Hmm.
Where we have to start is I want to be the kind of person who's so consumed with their health and with living a healthy lifestyle, that man, I'm going to be the 85-year-old that's rolling around on the floor with my grandkids, throwing them up in the air,
Mm.
playing with them, not the 85-year-old sitting in the corner on oxygen. So because that's my value system,
Hmm.
I'm going to set a goal to run a
Yeah.
marathon. And so that what we're doing is we're releasing ourselves from the pressure of whether or not we run a marathon and focusing on a process of I'm going to be healthy. That's my value system. You can't fail at a value system.
Hmm.
You can only move towards it or away from it in any given moment. So what happens is the values start to operate as organizing principles. I'm building my life around these values, and then they help the nervous system answer, okay, here's what matters right now.
Hmm.
And when values are clear, your decision making starts to become a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Not easier per se, but clearer. Like it's more, you have more clarity in the moment about what you're moving towards. And that's the key principle of all of this is behaviors are the byproduct of congruence, right? And congruence means this internal alignment that I have between my belief, my identity, and my action. And when your actions match your values, man, things start to feel more effortless, right?
Hmm.
When your actions match your values, your discipline gets easier because it
Right.
feels purposeful. It feels like there's a reason I'm doing this. When your actions match your values, setbacks, failures, bumps in the roads, those moments where you don't show up at the gym because you're just tired, that doesn't feel overwhelming. That just feels like, okay, I need to make an adjustment.
Yeah.
So, Trevor, tell me what you're thinking as I'm talking here. I know you deal with this personally. I know this is something you deal with in the clinical office. Like
Yeah.
there's a real connection between starting with a value system and letting that drive your goals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We see this all the time. Like in I mean in our own lives, this idea of congruence, right? I mean, even just thinking about, the virtue of integrity, right? Like I want to say what I do and I want to do what I say.
Yeah.
Right. That's I mean, that's like maybe the simplest version of alignment, right? You talked about this, my beliefs, like match my behaviors,
Mhm.
or my values. My values drive my actions.
Yeah.
Man, that's so important. And I think for Mike, you and I, we've had some spiritual conversations around that because this idea isn't like a new idea, right? This idea is old as the
Shocking.
world. Exactly, right? It's as old as time. It's as old as the
Yeah.
world, right? This idea of like it's God's idea. He designed and created us for congruence.
And so I think it's interesting, Trevor, because if we get a hold of this, if you're watching this and you really get a hold of this idea, what you're going to find is that congruence starts to reduce the internal emotional experience that you have minute by minute,
Mhm.
moment by moment. I say that congruence reduces the internal friction, right?
Yeah.
Because when people struggle to change, it's often not because they lack willpower or the desire to do it, it's because they're trying to act against their internal value system,
Hmm.
not from it, right? So incongruence, like if you, there's no alignment, and you have what we call cognitive dissonance, you have emotional exhausting, you have that shame and self-criticism that starts to creep up. But congruence, man, it creates energy. It starts to help you feel safety, like
Yeah.
psychological safety, like this is the way I'm supposed to live.
Yeah.
And when we operate out of an overflow of that congruence, it changes everything.
Yeah.
And that, in some ways, there's a neurobiological explanation for this because the brain actually interprets effort as meaningful stress, right? Not threat. So meaningful stress is tolerable. Like, okay,
Right.
I'm doing this and it doesn't feel great. I don't like getting in the car and driving to the gym and starting to work out. I don't like to sit down and maybe journal because that's what I feel like I need to do. It's uncomfortable. I'm busy. People might say this or that. At the end of the day, when it feels like it's flowing out of this value system, like, okay, there's a reason I'm doing this,
Mm.
that stress feels like I can manage it. And so on a very basic level, while you can have the appropriate natural stress of change, what you're doing when you start with your values is you're taking away that incongruence and the parts of that process that the brain will interpret as stress, like an
Yeah.
unhealthy, toxic stress, right?
Yeah.
So let's give some examples. Like how does this look? Stewardship.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people I talk to about stewardship. Like what if your value is stewardship? Your exercise is no longer about your appearance. It's not about comparing yourself to others. It's not about controlling like how much fat I have on my arm or my waist, or it becomes an
Right.
expression of care for what you've been entrusted with. I'm doing this because, man, this is this is an old church word, but I like it. This is the temple of God, right?
Right.
Like, and I want to
Yeah.
be a good steward of it. So I'm going to eat healthy and work out because that's what I'm called to, because that's my value system. And when you miss a
Mm.
workout, the question isn't like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? I'm never going to commit to anything. The question is, how do I steward myself
Mm.
in this moment? What's the healthy thing? Another example would be presence. Like, I want to be present. We hear so much about that in our world. Trevor and I talk
Right.
about it all the time in marital therapy. How do I be present with people? How do I be present with my kids, with my spouse at the office? And if your value is presence, putting your phone down isn't deprivation. It's not annoying. It's not nerve wracking. It's alignment. It's
Right.
like you're not giving something up, you're choosing congruence with being the kind of person that you want to be. And the
Yeah.
list goes on and on. Like faithfulness is another one I thought of just preparing
Yeah.
tonight. I was like, okay, if your value is faithfulness, the small, ordinary, little things matter, right? Not dramatic spiritual highs, not emotional intensity, not consistency is what matters. And guys, you start to look at some of these things that we can qualify as a value, and it colors your understanding of who you are, of what you're born to do. And I can get so
Mm.
passionate talking about this because, man, values based motivation, it lasts because it feels like the me. Like I'm doing this not because I have to. I'm doing this because this is in me. It's rising up and
Yeah.
from deep within me.
Right.
So
Man, that's good. Yeah, I think as you were talking about congruence and alliance, um, and alignment in the midst of that, it made me think of, and I've used this illustration many times in the clinic, like the alignment of your car, right? Like when your car is out of alignment, right? Like it pulls to one direction, and then you take it in because you need new tires, and then they like yell at you for like, why didn't you bring it sooner? And
yeah,
there's all these problems, right? And then I'm not a mechanic, I'm far from it, but it like impacts the way the car rides and the shock systems and the with suspension and like all the stuff, right? And you're pulling right to that energy and effort, right? That incongruence, right? That dissonance, right? That's caused and created in the car, and that's exactly what we're fighting, right? We're trying so hard, and that's why it ends up like sort of masking as burnout. It masks as overwhelm, exhaustion, and some of those things, which absolutely can still be happening in the midst of that. But it's just so much resistance, right, against
yeah,
this misalignment, right, which by design, again, God's design for us, right, is it's inconsistent with how he created us, right? He created
yeah.
us for congruence and for alignment.
So for those of you that want this time to be different, I want I want to actually set some goals and meet them. I want to create habits that actually hold, that stick. First key is recognizing that change that lasts is not driven by force. It's not driven by
Mm.
willpower. It's not driven by like passion. It's not driven by the white knuckling. Just I'm doing this and I'm going to grind it out. Change that lasts is driven by congruence.
Yeah.
And it's that congruence that turns into your habits minute by minute, moment by moment. And guys, this is the key. If you don't start here, you're going to replicate the old stuff.
That's right. Yeah, Mike,
Trevor,
we
maybe can you, I was going to say, maybe you could just help us understand the science behind this, because so what we've talked about so far is sort of connected to, just the behavioral things. And I think there's a
yep.
lot for people that are, you have a deep faith and you're like, okay, I get this, I understand value systems, but Trevor's gonna give you some science that will support this in ways that probably surprise you.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, as I talk about it, part of the surprising is it's more simple than we might actually think it is. Before I jump into this, I just maybe as a it's an opportunity. We're not going to dig further into it, but I think if you wanted to explore this further, we had this conversation about value, how intrinsic it is, how meaningful it is, how deep it is. That's how it sticks. That's how it lasts. Mike, we had a conversation with our staff about this just last week, and one of the great comments that came out of it, which was it was really a question, kind of a little bit of a crisis, which is, uh, what if I don't know what my values are? Right? Like, and so again, I think maybe just the encouragement in that is, as Mike said, that's a great place to start, right? Dig deeper into, spend some time, journal, jot it down, pray it out, talk with a friend if you need to, find a mentor, like, find in fact, we're going to talk about join us in this challenge, because in that challenge, you're going to find some incredible resources,
Yeah.
again, to be able to not just be able to say, okay, I'm gonna, like build habits on my values, but we have the prefacing part of that. Do I even know what my values are?
Yeah, and Trevor, I think if someone is watching this live stream and you can't really articulate your values, and you're like, man, I should know this. I should know what's important to me, but I can't really articulate it. This is where you start. So the way you do that, I'll give you just some quick things.
Yeah.
Um, Look back over your life. Think about the moments that you would say, man, of everything I experienced from birth to present, like that, I'm talking the whole thing. What are the high points?
Mhm.
What are the experiences I've had that I just felt like I was alive, man? Not like dopamine, not like, well, I was skydiving, and it doesn't have to be that. I'm saying those moments that just feel meaningful. When I'm walking a trail in the Smoky Mountains, when I was at camp at 12 years old, and I was, hanging out with all these other kids, and we were doing things. Look for the high points, because when you find the high points
Mm.
in your experience, those moments that make you feel alive, that's a very big clue for some of the things that you value and you hold dearly. But here's the important part. It's not just the high points that you need to look for. It's the low points. Think of the things that really bother you. Like, oh man, that gets me hot. That was so painful. That was so frustrating, because if you can understand the things that really have been deeply, deeply disturbing to you, it's those things that are probably pointing to
Yeah.
the things you value. So here's an example. I'll ask people these questions, and they'll say, "Well, man, the low points, it's been losing people. Man, when I lost my grandmother, I just went into this deep depression, or my dad passed away early. It's hard, and I don't know what to
Mhm.
do." Well, look, that's a great clue, because what that probably means is you deeply value family. You
Yeah.
deeply value close relationships. So examine your life, examine the mind of what you've been through, and the process that you've been through, And that's your biggest clue to begin to understand, here's what I value. And you need a list. You need a list of 3 or 4 or 5 things that you can say, this is what's at my core. And out of that list of values, you can begin to create your goals.
Yeah.
Your goals have to be congruent with your values.
That's good. Okay. So let's make this practical, right? Let's get to the science part of this. And I think it's helpful that if we're going to have habits that hold, like we really have to understand how habits actually form in the brain. So let's start from this place. Your brain loves shortcuts. Your brain loves hacks. And what I really mean by that is your brain loves pattern recognition. It picks up on it. It's constantly scanning for it, because when that happens, your brain is essentially it's conserving energy. Right. So it's not having to overthink, overprocess, overdo, right? Your brain's constantly looking for what's the pattern, right? What's the algorithm, right? What's the repeatable thing here? And when it does that, again, it recognizes, okay, I don't have to think quite as hard, quite as efficiently. I can conserve energy. And the way it learns habits is through that pattern, through that repetition. In fact, we call this the habit loop. So let me walk you through that. What's the habit loop? It's simply this. There's a cue, an action, and a reward. So let me kind of walk you through kind of what each of those are. The cue we might call is like that's the trigger. So that's like the moment that your brain goes, oh, this is when we're going to do that thing. Right. There's a cue. There's something, again, that's kind of triggering. Okay, this is the time, again, we're going to take that next step, or we're going to do that thing, which leads us to the action. The action is the actual thing, or in this case, the action is the habit, right? The thing that we actually do. And then there's the reward. The reward is the immediate reinforcement. Right, that's the reward part of our brain. Right, it's when your brain tells you, right, or you tell your brain, hey, that mattered, right? That was meaningful. Do it again, right? Like there's something that happens in the midst of that. If we think about this, here's something I think most people miss. They miss the reward in this sequence. And because I think oftentimes we think of reward has to be something big, right? Like, I did this thing, so I'm going to reward myself with a cookie, or I did this thing, and, I have to reward myself with some, like emotional high or some dopamine hit, like, again, something that has to be big, but actually it's deeper than that. Like, real reward is deeper than that. Like, deeper, like it's completion, it's agency, it's self-trust, it's the sense of pride, self-pride, right? Often around these things of like, I did it, I followed through. It's back to the whole idea of congruence, right? Integrity. I did what I said I would do, and I did it. And the greatest reward wasn't the dopamine hit, it wasn't the sugar rush, right? The greatest reward was that connecting to that sense of identity. In fact, we call that identity reinforcement, right? It's just simply telling yourself, I followed through, right? And that perhaps is one of the greatest rewards we could have. Now, let me just, in the midst of that, recognize there are other ways that we can reward. In fact, if you are in our Live Well coaching platform, like as an example, if you, pulled out your phone, you pulled up the Live Well app, you did the challenge in there. Every time you complete one of the lessons, you click the little button, it gives you a green check mark, and then there's like confetti that falls across the screen, right? And for a second, you're like, yeah, right, that felt good, right? Or like
it actually does work, Trevor. Seriously, when I do that in our app, I'm like, all right, that feels good. Yeah. That's just a little dopamine.
Exactly, right. Or for me, like I'm a runner, and so there's something about like actually we walk you through the sequence with running for me. So the cue or the trigger, the cue for me is it's like, I don't know, 5:10 in the morning. The cue is the alarm goes off, right? That's the cue, right? That's the moment my brain goes, oh, it's time to go do that thing, right? And then the action, now you might think the action is running. The real action for me is getting out of bed,
Oh, that's
right?
good.
Like, because I know if I get out of bed, I'm going to
Yeah.
go for a run, right?
Yeah.
And then, uh, in fact, let me actually pause there because I think there's some nuance that I think that is actually really helpful for us. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. We're going to talk about the idea of and kind of the environmental part of this, but let me include it here, which is, let me back this up, my sequence. Okay, my cue when the alarm goes off, it's actually started before that. This actually is funny because I do this every time I want to go for a run. I put my clothes out the night before. Right, like, I'll set them in a certain place, right? Because I've already had the forethought, right? I'm going to go for a run in the morning. My shoes, I know exactly where they are. My watch, it's on the charger, right? I've already done the work. So when the cue hits, alarm goes off, right? Okay, my brain says it's time to go do that thing. And we'll talk about this more, but I've minimized and mitigated the need to debate. Oh gosh, I can't. It's dark out, and I don't want to fumble around the bedroom and wake my wife Mindy up. And gosh, I can't remember where I left my shoes. And what if my watch didn't get charged? And right, all that stuff that tries to convince you to go back to sleep because it's 5:10 in the morning. Right? Remove all that. Right. So then the real action there is get out of bed, because I
Yeah.
know if I get out of bed, my watch is charged, my clothes are set aside, my shoes are ready, and it's go time, right? And then the reward for me, as silly as it is like, I have an Apple Watch, and when I get done, right, the rings are closed, right? And there's this kind of gamification of like, oh man, that feels great, right? And so, it's I think the follow-up reinforcement for me often I'll I actually share with somebody in the Apple world. I have like a friend that I follow, and they follow me, and so every time I complete a workout, it pings them. Every time they finish a workout, it pings me, right? And it feels good to know that, like, oh, they got notified that I finished my workout, right? There's, or when they finish their workout, I can have this like automated, like, hey, good job, keep it up, right? There's something great about, again, so the sequence, let's go back to that, the habit loop, the cue, the action, and the reward. But I think it's important that we just maybe go a step past that, and it's something that we called in this challenge, called the MV. MV stands for the minimum version. Because Mike, as you talked about, like, habits, they're not built on grit, they're not built on motivation, right? We know that if we're just outcome based, right, it's going to fall apart, it's going to wane, it's going to fail, right? So the whole idea, we're not going to be outcome based, we're going to be value based. And so part of this, in the midst of this, because we know ourselves, we know we're going to have a long day at work, we know we're going to get busy, we know we're going to come home tired, we know we're going to get hangry, we know we have that stressful meeting, right? And we're going to have all the reasons why we couldn't do the big thing that we planned for today. So that's where we insert this idea of a minimum version. A minimum version is just recognizing we're not going to get caught off guard, and we're not going to be surprised when life happens. So the minimum version, it's simply exactly what it sounds like. So it's the smallest version of the habit that we're building. So I have some of those, right? So like, actually today's one of those days, right? By the time we get out of here, I get home, try to have something to eat, right? Like, I'm like totally spent, right? I actually didn't get up and go for a run this morning. I haven't closed my rings, right? And so my minimum version, I have one of those. I have a stretching routine that I just, on minimum version days, like that's it. That's the plan. It's a forethought. It's already mapped out. I know what to do, and that's what's going to happen tonight, right? I'm not going to go for a run. I'm worn out. Like, I'm done. I'll try it again tomorrow. But this minimum version, it's not about lowering your standard, right? That's not what we mean by minimum. What we mean by minimum version is just simply to be able to say, we know life happens and we're going to plan for it.
Trevor, I think one of the ways we can integrate these pieces to say, okay, how do we take this loop that you're talking about and take that habit loop in the context of our value system? One of the things I believe everyone watching this live stream should at least consider about your value system. You should be the kind of person that values process
Mm,
over outcome.
yeah.
If you can say, I'm going to be the kind of person that
Yeah.
doesn't get stuck on outcomes, that doesn't get stuck on perfectionism, that doesn't need to have a certain outcome to feel okay about me. I'm going to be the kind of person that just says, what's the next healthy thing? I'm doing that. Okay, whatever
Right.
what do I do next? That's what I'm going to do. That's what Trevor's going to do tonight. He's just going to go
Yep.
home and do the next healthy thing. And then he's going to let the outcomes be what they're going to be. And the data is very, very strong on this. People that value process over outcomes end up being the peak performers. And it makes sense, right? If you get stuck in outcomes, then that shame comes, just like we talked about at the beginning. The
Right.
the ridicule comes, just like we talked about at the beginning. Those negative thoughts about you're not going to follow through, just like we talked about at the beginning of this live stream. If you can allow yourself to say, okay, wait, I want to be a peak performer, and peak performers just say, I'm going to do what's healthy no matter what. Kobe Bryant, when he didn't want to, shot 1,000 free throws after practice.
Mm,
Why? Because he was motivated every time, because he felt like it, because his wife wanted him to stay at the gym. No, none of those things. He did it because he thought this is my process. This is what I'm going to do.
yeah.
And when we commit to the healthy process, what happens is when we have a failure, we just can normalize it. And you look at even the data on, I didn't keep going to working out here, but it's just so easy. Look
Yeah.
at the data on working out. If people are tired and exhausted and they at least go to the gym and do a quarter workout, my friend used to call it a light workout. He used to say that all the time. I had a light workout today. I think that he just kind of didn't do his whole workout, right?
Sure.
But
Yep.
those people actually are the ones that maintain their discipline. They're the ones that follow
Mm,
through. And I think,
yeah.
man, if we can get a hold of that, it just changes the whole game for us because now we can just attach to the process and that's enough. That minimum viable or that minimum version is
Yeah.
what we need to really grab a hold of.
That's so good. Let me just mention one more thing, and then would love to hear more from you about the work of follow through, right? Like in
Yeah.
real life, like what that looks like, how that works, and again, when motivation drains, there's still something in place. And I want to come back to what I mentioned just a moment ago uh, about the preparation, for this again, this kind of cue, right? The cue, that the loop, the cue, the action, and the reward. And there's something that's called environmental design. And so this is what I was talking about when I said, put my clothes out in advance, have my shoes ready, charge my watch, right? All of this, right? That is just so important, right? That we've just made it easier, right? We've removed the tension, the friction, right? Because again, back to the idea of our brain is constantly looking for shortcuts. It's constantly looking for hacks, right? Like we will, if we don't do this, we find ourselves debating, like in our brain internally, right? I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get to it later. I just don't have the time. Oh, I can't remember where my shoes are. Oh, maybe it's raining out. Like whatever, right? Like
It's a
and
weekday.
exactly, right?
I'm breathing oxygen. Yeah, it's not a
Right,
good time.
exactly. So this whole thing, right, of just it's so important. Again, this idea of environmental design, and it comes with part of that planning for real life is it requires us to have some forethought. It requires us that again that work of kind of pre-decision. So, Mike,
Mhm.
talk to us. I love that story about Kobe Bryant, but talk to us more about the idea of like follow through.
Yeah. So you've got number one, this idea that you've got to identify your value system and make sure that you have alignment and congruence. And then secondly, got to do everything Trevor just talked about, that loop that allows you to have the maintenance of your goal. But you can do all that right and still come to a point to where your motivation starts to wane. You just
Mm.
you have to understand that motivation dipping is not a failure state. It's a normal response to effort, uncertainty, and stress, and just the life that we live. And the
Mm.
brain is constantly asking this one question: am I safe? Am I okay? Are we going to make it through this day? And when
Yeah.
effort increases and comfort decreases, the nervous system is not going to interpret that as growth. It's going to interpret that as stress, right? And so in those
Mm.
moments, the body isn't asking for meaning. Your brain isn't asking for meaning. It's asking for relief. That's it. We just want to get away from the negative emotion. And that's why people don't abandon habits because they stop caring. They abandon habits because their nervous system is just seeking regulation. And sometimes you're just trying to get away from the
Mm.
shame, get away from what feels like failure. So when this happens, and when you reach those moments where you're like, I just don't know that I can go on, I just don't know that I want to go on, a lot of times people are going to respond with all this characteristic negative self talk.
Mm.
And that force escalates the threat, and then when the willpower starts to fade because you can white knuckle it for a minute but you can't keep that up forever. And acceptance and commitment therapy would tell us the goal is not to eliminate discomfort in all of this. The goal is to expand your capacity to just accept discomfort and move with it and just deal with it. So that stuck moment, that moment where you feel like, I don't know that I want to do this and my motivation's gone. And you don't need to fix that feeling. You just need to know how to respond to it.
Mm.
Don't try to just ignore it. That's the surest way to give it power. Here's how you respond to it. Number one, name it.
Yeah.
Just let yourself accept it. If you have that moment where you're like, I do not want to do this, I'm exhausted, like Trevor tonight,
Right.
exhausted.
Yeah.
Name it, articulate it, write it down, right? Number two, normalize it. Normalize it. Just like Trevor did earlier. He's not beating himself up. It's been a long day. We're with you guys till 8 tonight, guys, because we care about what we're doing. We want to give you this information, but it's long.
Mm.
Normalize that it's hard. I'm human.
Mhm.
This is what effort feels like. Number three, choose the value. What matters here? It's not what do I feel like? Your feelings are irrelevant. It's just that that's not what's most important. The question is, what do I want to be in this moment, right here, right now? What kind of man do I want to be? What kind of woman do I want to be? What defines me? What do I want to look back and say about myself this week or today or next year? And four is big.
Mm.
And this is the one that people hate because the fourth thing you've got to do is move. You've got
Yeah.
to go. You got to get that minimum version, one action, the smallest action you can possibly find to follow through. It might be incomplete. It might feel like it's not enough, but it's aligned.
Yeah.
It's congruent. Be like my buddy, do a light workout metaphorically, right? You didn't do the whole thing.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
didn't do the whole thing. It's okay because that small movement prevents the shutdown, right?
Mm.
And so that mental reframe doesn't see discomfort as like a stop sign. It's just information. It's like, okay, this matters. This, I mean, I have this feeling because my body's sending me signals, my brain is sending me signals. I'm exhausted, I'm fatigued, I'm stressed, I'm upset, I'm hangry, whatever. But I need to recognize that the skill is allowing myself to feel the discomfort
Mm.
and choose my values anyway. Do it tired, do it scared, do it, unwillingly. Do it. Like let Nike and their slogan take over your life.
That's
Just
it.
do it, right?
Right. Mm.
And this
Yeah.
is a trainable capacity. This is something
Yeah.
you can train yourself to do. Do the
Mm.
hard thing. And there's some research on this. Andrew Huberman talks about it a lot. There's a part
Yep.
of your brain that the more you do hard things, the more you're able to do hard things.
Yeah.
So they've looked at things like cold plunges, for instance. None of you have done a cold plunge. You're missing an agonizing experience. It's awful. Trust me. I do them every morning. I have one at my house. I do it every morning, and it's agonizing.
Mm.
Your feet feel like they're going to fall off. Remember the first time I did it, told my wife, I called her and I was like, oh, this is not good. I think this is unhealthy. I think I should get out. I mean, all this stuff
Right.
is running through
Right.
my head because there's no way this is right.
Mm.
There's no
Mm.
way I should feel like this. But what I've done is I've allowed myself to
Mm.
just do the hard thing. And the more I've done that hard thing, the easier it has become to do that hard thing to where
Mm.
now I can get in that cold plunge and it's a lot easier. They addicts, people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol who do cold plunges are more successful in their recovery than addicts who don't do cold plunges. And the theory is they're training their brain to do the hard things when they don't want to. And the more you do it, though it's like exercising a muscle, the
Yep.
stronger that neural circuit gets and the more you're able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because we in lots of areas in the work that we do with individuals is this is synonymous of the idea of what we call distress tolerance, right? The idea of
Yeah.
exposing yourself to more distressful situations actually has the capacity to help you build tolerance to
Yeah.
handle more distress, right? We
Yeah.
see this a lot with OCD. We see this with social anxiety. We see this. We keep going through a long list, right? Behavioral activation, right? It's part of often paired with depression, right? Like just get going. And I think one of the things that's important about this, as you were talking about that, is I think one of the things that when we have set uh, uh, New Year's resolutions or we've set habits, we usually do that with a framework or a thought of all or none thinking.
Yeah.
Either I'm going to do
Yeah.
it all, but if I can't do it all, kind of this like sort of screw it, it's not worth it, right? And so I'm not going to do any. But what I hear you saying us is like, we talked about the minimum version. We talked about this idea of like, hey, do it anyways, do it tired, do the light workout, right? It's this, it's building that muscle, right? Of just keep
Yeah.
plodding forward.
Yeah. And it's hard, guys. I know it's hard. This is when most people leave therapy. When your therapist starts to push you to say, okay, I know you're anxious, but do it anxious.
Yeah.
I know you're depressed, but you need to get up and go to your mom's house or go out on a date. Or that's when a lot of people leave therapy because they're like, I can't see myself doing that. I want to feel better first, then follow through. It's just not how it works. And the funny thing for us, Trevor and I are faith guys, right? That's just part of who we
Mhm.
are. If you look at scripture, it consistently honors perseverance without glamorizing it, right? But it
Yeah.
says, let us not grow weary in
Right.
doing good, right? So weariness is kind of assumed. It's like just assumed in the human condition, but persistence is trained. Faithfulness happens minute by minute, moment by moment. And guys, you don't build discipline by feeling better first.
Yeah.
You build discipline by choosing your values even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's not willpower. That's not grit. That what that is called formation.
Mm,
That's formative in your life. You're building the version of yourself you want to be.
that's
So,
good.
Trevor, I know
Yep.
we don't have a ton of time, but man, we've got
Sure.
to get to this sort of plan for like real life. Like, how
Yep.
do you implement all this?
Yeah. So I think this is such an important part of this, right? Just the practical parts. And so I know in all that we've talked about, kind of just building to the sense of like, okay, so what's the plan? What's the formula? And so it's actually pretty simple. And it starts with this exactly what Mike said. It starts with a plan, right? A plan for real life. When real life happens, again, we've got this in place because again, most of our goal planning, most of our resolution work, it's not realistic. It's not designed and set up for real life. So we want to actually just walk you through. There's a clinical tool. It's called implementation intentions. Sounds fancy, but it's actually super simple, and it just walks through two things. It helps us identify the when and where part of the plan, and the if and then part of the plan. Okay, so again, really simple. So again, we're developing plans for real life. So we're going to have a plan that says when and where we're going to do it, right? So, like Mike, as an example, you know when and where you're going to get your workout in, right? Yeah, you know
I
the
do, in
physical,
fact.
right? Well, you know what days it is, you know what time of day it is, and you know
Yep.
the physical location in which you're going to do it, right? There's a
Oh, absolutely.
clear plan, right? When and where, right? Like for me, like in times when I've been training for races, like I know when, right, which days of the week are like what's called, or my running days, and then the other days which are called active recovery days. I know which are the running days and which are the active recovery days, and I know where. I've already thought in advance. I know where I'm going to be, right, when I go that when I've already mapped out in my head how where I'm going to go, how far it's going to be, right, and so it's so important to us. If we're going to really implement this stuff, we have to have that when and where plan, right? We can't just be willy nilly, wake up today and say, like, well, maybe I'll get some exercise today, right? Like that's paired with this idea of what we talked about before, which is the pre-decision, right? I've already decided. I've already decided when and where I'm going to, again, that cue, that habit, and or the cue, yeah, the action and the reward. But then there's this other part of this, and this is the part where we plan for real life, the if and then kind of contingency, right? If I'm running late from work, then I will adjust. If I got sick, or if I had to travel for work, or if my kid had to stay home from school, or if like just fill in the blank, right? If whatever it might be, again, we've already got these contingency plans. We've got these pre-decisions, right? That aligns really well with we talked about the minimum version. That's right. That's I have this happening tonight, right? We talked about it. So when and where, right? In this case, the if and then if if I couldn't get some steps in today, if I couldn't get my workout in today, then I've already got a plan. I know what I'm gonna do, right, in my routine before I go to bed tonight. But I think there's this other strategy that's paired with this idea of when and where and if then, right, or this idea of pre-decision, and it's simply this. It's preparing for the distraction, and essentially it's practicing for the distraction. This has a fancy name too. It's called cognitive rehearsal, and which is just simply this idea: I'm actually going to play it out in my mind, right? I'm actually going to give myself a pep talk, right? I'm going to prepare up here before it actually becomes something that I have to, like, the effort that I have to put out in my life. Like sports psychology, there's a ton of this work with cognitive rehearsal. People who are high performers in public speakers, people who are heading into boardrooms and leading large meetings, right? You've probably done this. You've prepared, right, mentally before you actually step into the action. Right? It's this difference between I'll figure it out when it happens, right? Like I'll just, just kind of like, well, I don't know, we'll just figure it out, later. And like when it happens, I already know what I'm going to do, right? I've pre-decided it, but the extra part of that, I'm not just pre-decided it. I've already, what Mike said, right? I've named it, I've normalized it, I've chose my value, and I've moved, right? And so I've practiced it here. So it's just, again, all of this is just making it easier for us to put this into to follow through, right, into implementation. So so as we think about this kind of moving forward, I think there's this final part around rhythms, like rhythms that are, it's not just repetition for repetition's sake, right? There's actually something more about this, right? These rhythms there's two parts of this. There's this kind of anchor part of rhythm, which is I'm anchored right in those when and where, right? I know what I'm doing. I know what I've got planned. This is the anchor plan, right? But it also comes with the flexibility, the flex part of, again, the if and the when. And I think what's important about that rhythm part is rhythm in and of itself is paired with alignment. Like Mike, I know we've talked about this before. Like again, you mentioned we're men of faith. Like we have this like pretty clear idea that God designed like all of creation with rhythm, right? Like every sunrise and every sunset and every tide, and every wave, and even think about that, like your heart rate. Your heart rate is a rhythm. Like you have rhythm in you right now, right? Right, that is beating on pace with, and again, that it's life-giving rhythms. We think about like our spiritual disciplines, right? They're life-giving. We think about, even the idea of like there's days for work and there's days for rest, right? There's so much to this kind of idea. Yes, we're talking about habit formation, and yes, this idea of follow through, and yes, this part of, but I think we have to keep in mind, right, that there's something incredible about just this simple idea of rhythm, right? Of just because rhythm is the place that we kind of return to, right? Mike, you said if like, again, if we don't do it, it's not failure, right? It's not failure. But if we think about it from this context, it's rhythms that we align with, rhythms that we return to time and
Yeah.
time again.
Yeah. Trevor, there's just so much value to this measured, balanced rhythm of formation that is saturated in grace.
Hmm.
I mean, the truth is, you're a human being. And if you have some things that you want to get done in the next month or the next year or the next 10 year, there's going to be moments where you're hitting on all cylinders and things are happening and it's working. And there's going to be moments where you miss the mark
Hmm.
and recognize that just as a natural part of being human. Like there's moments where we're on and we're all in, and there's moments where we've got to withdraw. And the important part is to not, like don't leave the beach. Like stay with the tides. Like let yourself kind of engage the process to say, okay, it is what it is. I'm just gonna let myself commit to the process and do it with a bunch of grace for me and awareness of God's heart for me. And you start looking at it with that lens, it just gives you the motivation and the peace to really go after what God's
Hmm.
called you to. And ultimately, that's what matters.
Yeah. That's good. I know we need to wrap this up, and so I want to close you out with an invitation, and it's the invitation to Live Well Coaching, and specifically an invitation to this challenge. So we've been the conversation, the focus that we're having tonight is paired with a 10-day challenge. So the 10-day challenge is just called Habits That Hold, Values-Based Rhythms That Stick. And so in that challenge, some of you have already gone through it. We actually just today was the day that we actually finished the first round of getting the final content in and getting access to everybody who joined us when we launched it. So if when you join us in the challenge, you're going to find Mike and I, we're swapping days. We're offering, it's 10, 12, 15-minute videos, insights that dive deeper into the conversation we had tonight, giving you very practical strategies and giving you daily challenges. And it's very systematic. It walks through in a way that's very sequential and helps and just reinforce the conversation we've had with you. In addition to that, like that's just sort of the appetizer, right, to everything that we have in Live Well Coaching. Mike, I can't even think of all of them, but we have challenges and courses and content. It's all on demand, right, that you can access anytime. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be able to say what we've done at Live Well, because we have curated information for you. I know that you can jump on the internet and you can Google search something and you can have a bunch of search results come up. I know that half of you get on Chat GPT and you ask it to solve all of your life's problems, and it kind of can, which is weird.
Sure.
But what Trevor and I and the rest of the team have done is we said, okay, let's give people access to great quality information, and let's package it in a way that's consumable, and let's be relational with people in the process. And man, I'm so proud of what we've done, because if you want to get healthy, if you in your body, if you want to get healthy in your mind, if you want to get healthy spiritually, and you want to stay healthy, we've got the content that's going to help you do that. So for starts, we do something called the Daily Drop. And the Daily Drop, you get new content from Trevor and I and the rest of the Live Well team every day. Curated content from clinicians, people that have been in the field of mental health for decades and decades and decades. This number is growing, Trevor, but we have hundreds of years of clinical experience on the Live Well
Yeah.
team. Like if you just put everybody's clinical experience together, hundreds of years of experience. And those are the people that are the brains behind the content that's delivered. So every day you get new content. On Mondays, you get information about depression and how to cope with depression. On Tuesdays, you get information about how you deal with stress and anxiety. I mean, how relevant is that in our world? We're all stressed and anxious. On
Yeah.
Wednesdays, we have content about wellness. On Thursdays, we have content about addiction. Like, what do you do if you're addicted to drugs or alcohol or porn or high fat, high sugar foods or gambling, whatever? On Fridays, we talk about relationships. Who doesn't need to get a booster shot, and how to have a happy, healthy marriage, or how to build a relationship with somebody that's difficult at work? And we're giving that to you every week. Then, in addition to that daily content, we've got courses and challenges on anything you could imagine. So we've got courses on relationships and healthy relationships and emotional intelligence and boundaries and gratitude and alignment. We have a whole course and challenge that we did on alignment. I've got a stress relief for life course on the platform that I went through the first 16 sessions that I go through with someone when I'm doing therapy with them on stress or anxiety. And I give you the content that we go over every session. You literally have my content for stress and anxiety in therapy, but you get it on the Live Well Coaching at your discretion, on demand. So it's all this information, guys, that you have access to. We also have a Live Well chatbot that is trained on Live Well content. So you can get on our Live Well Coaching site, you can get on our custom chatbot, and that chatbot will give you information that honestly, it's pretty good. It's a lot of, I'll talk to it sometimes and I'll be like, man, I remember writing that article. That's good stuff. So what we've tried to do with Live Well Coaching is give people access to information in ways that are consumable, in ways that don't like wear you out. You don't have to sit there and read a 300-page book to try to figure out how to deal
Mhm.
with your stress, right? You can get quick and dirty information. It's
Yeah.
very practical. And guys, we want to invite you to join that platform. If you want to do the challenge is free. Just try it out. Just sign up for an account. It's free to make an account on either the website or the app. Go to that Habits That Hold challenge and just take it. And you'll see that'll sell itself, because once you do that, you'll be like, man, I want to do more. I want to do more. It's helping. And then once you are kind of involved in the process, you can join. And once you join Live Well Coaching, you have access to all the information we've ever curated, hundreds of hours of content on
Yeah.
that platform. And then finally, if you start to consume that content, you're like, man, I wish I had someone that knew about this and that could help me and encourage me and give me accountability and affirmation. We have people that we call Live Well coaches that are really familiar with our content, and they'll work with you to build a wellness platform and program right in the Live Well app, and then hold you accountable to meet your goals. They'll help you get from where you're at to where you want to be. So, I hope you guys give it a shot. I hope you guys are willing to. Trevor and I do a lot of the content on there, so
Yeah.
you'll get a lot more of our content, a lot more of what's in our heart. And my the reason we do this is because we want to do whatever we need to do to give people information that'll help them get healthy, stay healthy, and live well. That's what we want for you. And if you want a way to do that, Live Well Coaching is your path.
Yeah. Like, I mean, just hearing you sharing, like, I mean, I know all the stuff because we do it every day, but I'm excited just to hear you talk about it, right? In all the resources, all the opportunities, everything that is on demand, everything, but beyond that, and everything that is relational and connected and personal, right? It's so important to be able to have resources like this
Yeah.
available. So let's just give you this as we wrap up. We talked about the Live Well coaching platform. It's very simple. If you just go to livewell-coaching.com, that's where you can find the site. If you want to shortcut that and you want to go straight to the app, you can just find that in the App Store. You just look up Live Well Coaching, and again, you'll find the app. The app is just simply a mobile-friendly version of the website. All the content is there for both of them, and as Mike said, you can sign up. You can open an account with no obligation, no fees, and you can get started with the free content that we have. If you're looking for more, we've got more, and you can do that through our membership or coaching. All right, Mike, it was great to be with you tonight. I know I get to see you every day, but it's fun to be able to do this online. And all of you who joined us for this live event, or all of you who are checking this out on demand, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. See you on Live Well Coaching.